good morning to all of you, and I welcome you to the world of textiles. I think all of you are the consumers of textiles on one way or other, because we wear textiles in the form of garments, and you have a number of brands in this, and number of things are coming in the market. And also when we sit on a sofa or somewhere, you will have a cushion over there and it contains textiles. And even if you take bath and all, we wipe with a towel, and we sleep also on the sheets again. And so when you open your window, and the window will have the curtain, and even in the kitchens, you are going to wipe with the towel or napkin. Okay, and so we need textiles everywhere in the world, and in house and in the office, or even anywhere you find the textiles over there. And whenever we want to select the textiles, and there are so many fabrics coming in the market, like the fabrics which you see now today, and tomorrow when you go, you will find number of other garments over there. And how are you going to make a selection? Are we going to listen to the salesman and say that yes, it is nice and I will buy it? Or is it the appearance and the color that we see and buy it? Is it okay if you do it? It will not be okay, because fabrics differ, and it depends upon the end use of the product. For example, you are buying a textile for a apparel material, and the apparel material means how it should be for you, and you should feel comfortable to wear this particular thing. And so for comfort, there are few properties that are required to make it comfortable. In the same way, we are using it as in the form of a sheet, bed sheet, okay, and it should contain some kind of resistance to rubbing and other things. So we need to know what is the end use, okay, and how to select among the so many textiles the fabric which is suitable to our end use. Okay, that's why you need the knowledge of textiles definitely. And those people who are already in this kind of business, or in the sales in the shop and other places, they need to know thoroughly this knowledge. But as a consumer too, you should you need some knowledge in this, and so one has to study textiles. Okay, and sometimes you wonder why few fabrics when you wear you feel very cool, but some fabrics will be very warm when you wear it during summer, for example. And so the fabrics that you feel cool, you can wear them during the summer, or those you feel warm and you can wear them during the winter season. And also, when you see the garments over there, you have a number of brands coming up in the market. Okay, and also, you have labels on the textiles, and each label may contain, you say that it is cotton, it is something else, polyester, or it is acrylic, or it is rayon, and it is linen, and like that, there are different things given. And so you need to know what are the fabrics that are present, what are the fibers that are present, and what is the content. For example, we are using it as a blouse material or your own top material. Then how are you going to select the material? By seeing the material, you will buy it, or you will see the fiber content and buy it. It is always better, you get satisfaction, and also you are sure that you are going to be get a comfortable material for making it into a top, right? And so we need to know, what is this fiber and how much content it has, what whether the particular fiber has absorbency or not. So some of these things we need to know. So we need the knowledge of textiles in this particular world. Otherwise it is very difficult for all of us, because we can't say, like my mother buys or my sister buys for us, and somebody will buy, my brother will buy, and all, because at one point or other you have to purchase, you have to make a selection of your own garment. And so it is always better you have knowledge of these textiles. And so there's actually, this textiles is a word, Latin word coming from texere. It's a Latin word, is a texere, which means that it is a weaving. So nowadays it's not just weaving, but there are many methods of making the fabrics. Like fiber, when I talk about fiber means that a small unit of textiles, and it is in the form of a small hair like fiber, and which is going to be used as made into a thread, and then threads are made into fabrics. They may be woven into fabrics, or they may be knitted into fabrics, or they are felted into different kinds of fabrics. And so this particular textile term is used to cover all these three aspects, that is the fiber, the yarn, and the fabric. Finish of fabric or grey fabric, like that, there are different things, but this textiles is a generic term, and which is used to cover all these stages of the textiles, that it starts from the raw material, it comes to the consumer, and so we call it as only a textile. And so this is to understand your brands and other things in the market, and also understand what kind of properties are required for the end use that we are going to use it, and we have to make a selection, and for that reason we need the knowledge of textiles. And so we need to know some of the terms in this, and if you start from the length of the fiber. Okay, length of the fiber means it is the fiber is a small strand, okay, like a hair. Hair will also be like a wool is a hair coming from the sheep, all of you know. So it is the hair that is coming up, so it's a small fiber, and so this fiber should have some length, and when you compare the length to the width, and it should always be a minimum of 100:1. So if the 100 is the length, one part should be the width, otherwise you cannot use it. If the more of width and less of length, you cannot make a yarn, because yarns are nothing but the threads that are seen, and these are formed by assembling all these fibers together, and by spinning them you are able to get a continuous strand, so that the continuous strand is used for making the fabrics. And if you take fiber like we have nylons, polyesters and rayons and other things which are artificial fibers. Okay, when you take them, that fiber, actually the fiber is very long, and because it is artificially made, it is possible to get a very long fibers. And whereas in the case of cotton is, you know, that it comes out from the cotton plant, and pods come out, and from that you will get in the form of a fleece, right? And so those fibers, when you take, they are very, very small, and so these small fibers should be made in the form of a thread, and so we need less width than the length, definitely. So 100:1 ratio of length to width is minimum in any textile fiber. And so now we said that there are shorter fibers, there are longer fibers. Shorter fibers are called staple fibers. Say that staple fibers. Sometimes they write that staple yarn. That means that the fiber of a small shorter fiber is being used in the material. And you have filament fiber. Filament fiber means it is a continuous one. So if you take natural fibers like cotton, wool, linen, jute, banana, and all these things, they are all called as only staple fibers, because they start from 1/4 inch to 18 inches, up to 18 inches it will be there. Okay, so you can call them as staple fibers. Whereas you take silk fiber, right? And so from the cocoon we are drawing the fiber, and it comes out in the form of a continuous thread. So this particular thread, it is called as a filament. Okay, silk filament. Silk is the only natural fiber which has filament. That means length is continuous. So we have two types of fibers now. One is a staple type of fibers, and other one filament fibers. Staple fibers are like cotton, wool, linen, jute, banana, and all these things, you know, vegetable fibers. They all come under the staple, because the fibers are very short, and so they need to be taken, and then they should be combed, and they should be taken in form of a strand, and then a thread comes out of it. But whereas continuous threads, continuous fibers, if you take, they are called as filament fibers, and with that, you know, you just take them whichever length, how much ever length we want, and then just give a spinning, and that means twist, and then it becomes a yarn. So it is there is a difficulty with the staple, but not the filament. And when you take the fibers together, definitely take all these natural fibers are going to be staple, and all others will be artificial fibers are going to be all filamentous fibers, unless they are cut and made into shorter lengths, but usually you get a filament fiber. But only silk is a natural filament fiber, but all other fibers, they can be measured from 1/4 inch to 18 inches. Wool fiber and even jute, linen, and all, these are the fibers which are little longer than wool and other things. So it will come up to 18 inches, not more than that. And so this is the length, you know, the related terms are, one is that length to width ratio, and we have staple and the filament. And then coming to the strength of the fiber, when we talk about the strength of the fiber or strength of textiles, for example, you are going to use it as a suiting material, or you use it as a trouser material. Trouser material requires to be very strong when compared to other things, even more than a shirt and all, we need the trouser material to be very strong. And in that case, what is strength? Why do you say strength? Strength means it is the ability of the material to withstand some stress when you put it some distortion, or when you stretch it and all, to an extent that it breaks at some point, definitely. So, the strength of the fiber can be measured, either in grams per denier, or it can be measured in pounds per square inch. So, if it is grams per denier, then it is called as tenacity, and if it is pounds per inch, it can be called as tensile strength. So, some of them use this measure, or some of them use the other one. So, it depends upon that. So, either tenacity or tensile strength, almost same, they are synonymous. Okay. They only measure how much breaking strength is there when the fabric is being stressed. Okay. And then there are some terms, related terms, physical terms, like you find flexibility. What is flexibility? When you talk about flexibility, it is the pliability. That is important for all the textiles. Otherwise, what will happen to the textile? That it becomes too stiff. There is another term also, stiffness, or the you can say that it is a rigidity. So, if the rigidity is there, then it will be very difficult for us to make it into a yarn. So, the kind of pliability or flexibility is important for all textile fibers, and the rigid fibers and also very stiff fibers, they may bring fabrics which are very stiff. And also sometimes cotton and all, when you wear it, it becomes limpy unless you put some starch to it, right. And so, but if you have some kind of say fabrics like banana and all, banana fabric or jute fabric will stand by itself, just because it has more rigidity or more stiffness. And so, some of these terms are also very important in this. And then coming to one more physical term that is being used is the uniformity. Uniformity means it makes an importance in spinning, it is very, very important, and especially when you are making a blended fabrics. And you might have heard about cotton blends, polycots, or call it as a cotton polyester, okay, or a polyester, terling cotton, okay, like that you have some blends. So, when you are blending these two, cotton and with something else like polyester, like nylon, like wool, like silk and all. So, we need to know that how much width it has, that means how much diameter it has, how much length it has. Can you just combine two things which are not similar in a shape or even pliability or of these things? You cannot do it. And so, we require uniformity in the fibers that you are going to use it for making the yarn. Even cotton grown in some place, it may be a thicker one, and another variety may be very thin one, and you cannot combine these two, and unless you test them together. And so, uniformity is required over there. So, you can't combine fibers of different properties together altogether, right. And so, this uniformity is an important aspect of these textiles. And then coming to the density, what is density? I think density is this is the weight of the fiber. In the other words, it is the weight of the fiber, okay. And usually it is very, very important, because the fabric weight depends upon the fiber weight again, right. And so, that is people have to take the textile weight into consideration when they are selecting some of the materials. And when you are selecting materials for older people, and older people cannot bear that particular weight, and so they try to look for very light materials, heavy materials they cannot bear, and so the density of the fiber is very, very important. And then coming to terms like cover, cover is a term which is simultaneously used with the spreading of the fiber. So, when I talk about the lightness of the fiber, and light fiber will be more in volume. So, if you take the same weight, 1 kg of cotton and 1 kg of say wool, and which will be more? Definitely wool will be more, because the weight of the wool is very less when compared to the cotton. In the same way, if you take nylon and polyesters, they are also nylon is very light material, and so they differ in this. And when you have more of that fiber coming up, and the covering area will be more, the spreading area will be more. So, cover means that is the covering of the whole surface with this one, and so the one which is heavy will not be able to cover that much, but whereas the one which is lighter and it will be able to cover more. Right? And so some of these terms, physical terms, are being used. And also one more thing is luster. Say for example silk, when you take the silk material, how is the silk material? Silk is very lustrous. Luster is nothing but the shining that is seen in the materials. In textiles we do not call it as a shining, but we call it as only luster. Okay, luster means it is the shining of the fiber. Cotton is dull, okay, and whereas if you treat the cotton with sodium hydroxide and all, it becomes a mercerizer cotton, it has luster, and silk has luster, banana has luster, jute has luster, right. Wool does not have that much luster, okay, even though it is a protein fiber. So, like that, luster is very important, because moreover these artificial fibers, we talk about nylons, we talk about rayons, polyesters, acrylics and all. So, what happens to these fibers is that they have lot of luster, because luster means it is nothing that the light reflects on the surface of the fiber. Fiber is made into yarn, yarn is made into the fabric. So, when the fiber is very smooth, because these are the artificial fibers come through chemical, and it comes through a small hole, okay, small hole of a spinneret. When they are coming out and in the form of a hole, means hole will have a definite shape, right. And so, when they are coming out like this, and it will be very uniform throughout its length and also throughout its width. It will be very much uniform, and thus it becomes very smooth. And when the light ray falls on that, and it totally reflects back. So, the particular material will show lot of shining, and which you feel that you do not want to wear it. Okay. And so, that is different from the luster, like silk. Silk, when you see, definitely you feel that there is richness in that, and the luster has the richness, but not in this one. In the artificial silk and all is available in the market, and dupcha and all, some materials are available in the market. See, those materials will have that kind of shining, and people do not like to wear that kind of materials every time, or do not like to see it every time. Only for occasions it is okay. So, that is about the luster of this one. And then we talk about the absorbency when we are talking about these comfortable materials. Comfort means it is the sweat, when you so the body, when it secretes a sweat, the sweat comes out, and this sweat should be absorbed by the fabric. Okay. So, that kind of absorbency is nothing but the ability of the fiber or the fabric to take up the moisture. So, it may be in the form of a moisture that is present in the air. If it is present in the air, if the fiber is able to take it up, that means that we can say that it is hygroscopic. Hygroscopic means it is the ability of the fiber to take it in the form of a moisture vapor in the air. And so, some fabrics or some fibers are having this kind of property, and other fibers are not having that kind of property, like cotton is hygroscopic. Okay. And when you take fibers like these silk or wool or cotton or jute or banana, and all these fibers they have very good absorbance. That means that they are able to take up more moisture, like wool has higher moisture, and followed by silk, and later cotton comes the least among all these things, because cotton is not, because of the cuticle that is present on the surface of the plant cell. I think you might have studied about this in your previous classes, right. And so, and this the absorbency is very important for all of us, and so those are the things which are able to take up moisture, or when you put waters in that, and it is able to take up some water, that means that it is hydrophilic. The fabrics or the fibers are called as hydrophilic. And some fibers like nylon, polyester and all, when you put a drop of water on that, usually it will not absorb so soon, right. And so, those fabrics are called as hydrophobic. Is a fiber or a fabric, it is the textile is called as a hydrophobic textiles. But hydrophobic textiles, you will have problems, like polyester. You have polyester does not absorb water at all, even if you bring water and put it, and also it takes up, but it will not make the water go into the fiber system. It is present only on the surface. So, these are all called as a hydrophobic materials, and cotton, silk and wool and other things which can take up water are called as a hydrophilic textiles. And there is one more term called Wickability, you should also know it. And even though polyester does not have that a capacity to absorb, but it is able to pass on that moisture on the surface of the fabric. And so, when the sweat comes out the body and it takes it up, and then it moves on the surface of the fabric. Okay. So, wherever the sweat comes, the sweat will not stay over there, and it is taken to the other areas, and so the wearer will not feel comfortable definitely, and he will not feel sultry in that atmosphere. Okay. And so, the wickability, when hydrophobicity is associated with wickability, definitely the fabrics can be used for apparels. That is one thing which you have to understand. Then coming to when we are sitting it, and when you are shaping the garments into it, and what happens, it needs to be stretched. Now, if it does not stretch, what will happen? You will not be able to wear it at all. It starts breaking at that particular point, it tears. And so, elasticity is very, very important in all the fabrics. This is associated with elongation. That means that elasticity is nothing but it is the ability of the fabric to stretch and comes back to or bounce back to its shape. Okay, when the distortion or whatever stress is removed, it should come back to its position. In this elasticity, there are two things. One is elongation and the other one is elasticity. Elongation means it is the amount of stretch that it has stretched. We have stretched it to 10% over its original length, or to 20%, 30% like that. Okay, 5%, 10%, 20%. So, that is called elongation. Elongation is nothing but the amount of the fiber, the length of the fiber that is being stretched. And then coming to elasticity or elastic recovery, we call it as a elastic recovery. Elastic recovery means when you stretch it to that length, and when you leave it like this, and it should bounce back to its shape. Okay. So, that is called as a elastic recovery. Elastic recovery is a very important property in all the fabrics. Otherwise, what will happen? You will elongate and leave it, it does not go back to its place, and then what will happen? It will create creases on the fabric. It will not be able to go back to its shape, and then the creases will appear on the material. Like you have nylons, polyesters and all these things have good elasticity, and so usually they do not crease. When you wear cotton, what will happen? When you wear and go around, and creases will appear on the material, because it is unable to go back fully. Maybe it will stretch back to a certain extent, but it will not be 100% going back to its shape, and that is why, and you have to wash it again, put it in water, then only it will lose those creases and all. So, this is one important aspect, and you have to see whenever you are selecting the garments whether it is crease resistant or not, whether the elasticity is there or not in these fabrics. Okay, coming to the physical shape, physical shape of the fiber is very, very important, because physical shape means it contains even the contour and also the surface of the fiber. So, when the surface of the fiber is smooth, and you will have more luster, I just now told you, and also sometimes it may not, very smooth means it is difficult to spin them together also, if it is a staple fiber. And if it has some roughness, and it is able to keep up, it is able to stick onto the other material, and then it will be able to do it. That the cohesiveness, we call it as a cohesiveness, that is important in the some of these fibers, so that they are able to stick together. That is because of the the surface of the fiber. And some of the fibers like wool and all, it has scales and all. So, and that is the physical shape of the fiber. And coming to this, when we are talking about the elasticity and this elongation after elastic recovery, sometimes it does not recover so much, 100%. So, whatever is left, sometimes they call it as a creep. Okay? And this creep means that it is unable to go back to its position. And then you have terms like the electrical conductivity. For example, if it is electrical conductivity, the fiber, if it is a good conductor of electricity, then there will not be any problem, because how electricity is being generated? It is generated by rubbing against one another. Fabric, when we are wearing and when we are moving, and the fabric gets rubbed against the body and also against itself, and so the electricity is being created. Like fibers like cotton and all fabrics, when you wear, and the electricity will be able to be conducted away into the atmosphere, whereas polyesters, these nylons and all artificial fibers will not be able to move away the elasticity that is being formed on the fabric. And so that is called, that is elasticity which has become static on the fabric, is called static elasticity, and we have problems associated with it. And maybe you can even see when you remove your these things, you get the tickle sound. The tickle sound is itself is an indication that is the static elasticity. When you are removing it or when you are wearing it, you find the tickle sound, but when you see it in the dark, you will find that sparks of these things. So they are very careful you should be. And so this is called a static elasticity, and electrical conductivity is always better, so that you need not worry about it. And then associated to this is a pilling. Pilling means it is a balling up of the fiber ends on the surface of the fabric. And some of the fabrics, when you are wearing it, and those balls of things become seen on the surface, and thus it becomes unsightly. Even though the color is good, even though the shape is good, everything is good, but because of those the balls on the surface, then we will not be able to wear it. It does not look nice at all. And so you have to see when you are buying the fabric whether it pills or not. This pilling is usually seen in some of these blends, like cotton polyester or cotton nylon and other things. Otherwise it will not be much problem. Cotton also it forms because it is a staple fiber, it falls up, but because it is not a very strong fiber, they will break away and then it will not cause any problem. But whereas in the case of nylons, polyesters and all, they are very strong, and thus the balls that are coming up on the surface will not go back, and so there is a problem with these things. And so you have to test for the pillingness, whether if it pills or not. Hand is another term that is being used. How you feel when you are touch the fabric. Is it soft, or is it harsh, or is it dry, or is it moist, and is it silky? And these are the terms usually we use in order to explain how the hand is. So hand is a mixture of many things, like its crease recovery, its strength, its contour, and all such things are there in this particular thing. So hand relates to all these things, even crease recovery, stiffness, all these things come under hand. So hand is an important property for all apparel materials. You should have a good hand, then only you will be able to do it. And then another term is there, that is loft. Loft is when you compress a material, it should come back to its shape, to the same thickness. So in thickness, if there is any distortion in the thickness, then it should be able to come up. So that is called as the loft. Okay, that is nothing but the resistance to compression. Okay, and one more thing is also there associated to this is the resiliency. Resiliency means when you take a fabric and distort it, and you take in your hand and then crush it, that means that you are putting it to distortion in many ways. Okay, and so when you open your hand and if it bounce back to its shape, then it is called as having good resiliency. Like all artificial fibers, that you are using all these polyesters and all, they bounce back to shape once you open your fist. And so, but whereas in cotton and all, when you take, definitely when you do it like this, when you crush it in your hand, in your fist, then what happens? When you remove it, then you find so many creases here and there. It will not bounce back to the same shape. And so this is something which is important for us, that shows whether it requires some kind of ironing or not, and things like that will be decided by these kind of things. And also one more is that feltability. Wool is there, wool felts. When you take wool fiber, you need not make a thread out of it, you need not make again weaving, or by knitting you need not make a fabric. You can take all the fibers together and then with some kind of heat, moisture and pressure, and you can just press them into sheets. So it is the capability of the fiber to felt into some shape, right? Only wool has, natural wool has this particular property, and it is called as feltability of these things. So these are some of the physical terms related to the physical properties. These are the terms related to the physical properties of the textile fibers, and which you should be able to remember it.